Hey everyone, it is Vickie Magic here today with my podcast, Wake Up to What Matters. So today I am so blessed to have the amazing Kim Morrison with me today. Welcome, Kim.
Hello, and thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you so much. So Kim, I just wanted to, sort of talk to you today and tap your brain and get inside your brain to find out, what kind of things that you've struggled with yourself over, and I guess even in the last couple of months as well, with regards to, stress and overwhelm and anxiety. Is that something that, any of those things, or fear, any of those things, kind of hit a button with you?
I think for all of us, it happens at some point. We were talking off air, and we both know that most of us will go through some sort of struggle or challenge, anxiety, fear, comparison syndrome, regret, not feeling good enough, comparison syndrome, as I mentioned. And it's just like, it can be so overwhelming. And of course, we throw into that motherhood, business, the everyday stresses of just trying to keep the home running, keep family and friends happy, and be a damn good human to go with it. So I have definitely been struck by all of those things. And I think the more I'm in business, the more I'm online, the more books I write, the more I put myself out there, the more those things can come up. And of course, with more success comes more challenge and more adversity and more disgruntled people or people that challenge you. And I think if there was anything I've learned out of all of this is to stay in my lane, stay and do what's true to me, get help when it goes beyond me. If I get really stressed or if I find myself lying on my bathroom floor and just cannot get up, then I also know that sometimes you have to really feel it to heal it. You do actually have to go through the motions. In my humble opinion, I believe there's only two driving forces in life. One is love and one is fear. And underneath fear sits all of those self-sabotaging emotions, beliefs, feelings, and concerns. And no one escapes them. In fact, I've learned through all the work I've done is that every single one of us will be challenged at some point. Sometimes we get nudges and sometimes we get Mack trucks that just sideswipe us. And it's really not a case then of if it will happen, but when it will happen. And when it does happen, how much have we got in our tank? How much resilience do we have? What's in our toolkit of survival when we do get struck down by grief, sadness, fear, resentment, all of those things? How do we find the inner strength to pick ourselves up? What makes us keep going? And is it okay to have a pity party every now and again? And I think in all honesty, Vickie, and I think you'll agree with me, we both know each other very well, that sometimes also, and it's hard to say this when you're in the throes of it, but sometimes it's those challenges that actually end up making us. They end up being the perfect lesson and opportunity for growth for us. And often in hindsight, we'll look back at them and go, thank God that happened. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am or where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And, I think that sometimes people just think that, because they're at a certain level of success or, they're in a certain position or, they have a certain amount of money or whatever, that people see them as up there on a pedestal. But the reality is that we're all actually the same, aren't we?
Yes. And I think what's really interesting on that is ask somebody who's got a whole lot of money and they're miserable compared to somebody who's really happy who doesn't have a lot of money. So what is success and how do we define feeling great about ourselves? And how do we really work out what is our true core purpose on this planet? And how come things keep getting thrown at me or not thrown at me? Have you noticed that some people seem to get knocked down way more than others? And yet the people that we're attracted to, the people we're inspired by, the people that we just absolutely love are the ones that keep showing up. They keep giving their best. They keep, in many ways, coming from a place of service to themselves and to others. So I think that whole thing around comparison, especially when it comes to money or love or relationships, it's very hard to compare what is successful in all of those things. And I think what really matters the most is when it comes back to your true core self of where you feel most happy, what makes your voice sing, what makes you feel alive and wanting to get up every day. Ultimately, that is true success, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, you were saying before about the people that always seem to have the stuff happen. So if somebody out there was listening to this and that was them, what advice would you give that person to, kind of get out of their own way, if if you like? What advice would you give that person?
I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And then I would turn that around and say, why not you? So we all have lessons and learnings, and we all have opportunities for growth and development and change. But if you find the same patterns are happening to you over and over again, then my only true way of examining and understanding that is you haven't got the lessons yet. And sometimes it's not until you go through the hardest part of the growth of that and really feeling that and really educating yourself or being so open and vulnerable and getting help around that, that those things will keep showing up. What we believe will perceive, and what we perceive we will believe. So if we believe that we're always having this happen to us, then guess what? Our universe will keep picking up on signs and signals to go looking for that until it becomes just null and void in your world. Will you realize that it's no longer required as a lesson for you? So if you are in the throes of a repetitive, constant struggle and challenge, then maybe this time just go with it, feel it, get support, get some outside or beautiful insights from people who maybe know better than you. We get coaches to be great athletes. We get coaches at gyms. We get coaches with money. We get coaches in business. Sometimes I think therapy is one of the best life forms of coaching that we could ever reach out for. And I'm sure that's why there's been a surgence in mentorship programs, life coaching, and all the things that allow us to feel like we actually belong and feel part of a tribe. And if COVID's taught us anything, it has been, I think Mother Nature personally has put us all into time out. And if it's taught us nothing, this beautiful connection online is one of the most remarkable ways to feel like you belong, to feel like there are other people out there that feel the same as you. But here's my thing, and something that I've learned many years ago. At some point in your life, no matter what age that is, but when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, or you're sick and tired of yourself for what's going on, then sometimes we have to draw a line in the sand. And when we're below the line, it's always when we're in blame, denial, or we're making excuses. But when we draw that line and get above the line, we are taking accountability, responsibility, and ownership. Now, that doesn't mean to say we're going to stop the shite happening or stop all the mayhem or stop people doing things that are mean to us or awful to us. But it does make us accountable, responsible, and take ownership for how we respond to it. And ultimately, as an ultra marathon runner, when I was running, I was told many years ago that it's 90% mental and 10% physical. Well, I would say life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. So it really is a chance and an opportunity for you to put your big girls or boys pants on, step up above the line, get into victor mentality and say, you know what, enough. I deserve more. I am worthy. I am absolutely someone who deserves to love and be loved. And I'm going to do everything I can in my power to really observe my behavior and get the support I need to become a bigger, better version of myself. That to me is when we are really growing and learning. And that will be when the same things stop happening to you over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love that. That's just so perfectly exactly what I wanted you to say. So actually, let's talk just for a moment about your running and your ultra marathon time. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about your own voice in your head when you were doing the running, because I know that you've certainly given me some great inspiration when I did my marathon. It was your voice in my head and the guidance that you gave me that actually got me through that. I don't know if you know that, but that's the absolute truth. And, you know, those words that you said to me that, you know, I remember when you even said it to me, you know, when you're running and your knee hurts or your foot hurts, or your leg hurts or whatever hurts, just send it love. And I'm like, oh my God, is that all you got? Are you seriously killing me? Like, are you kidding me? Surely you've got some more, you know, something better for me than that. But you know what? When I was in the moment, you know, it was at 17K, another time at 25K, another time at 32K. And I did exactly what you said because I was desperate for some kind of relief. I'm like, okay, Kim, here we go. And I'm sending my knee love and my feet love. And you know what? It worked. So thank you. So I'd love to invite you to, you know, to share with our listeners, you know, more about that running, more about, you know, what you did and how you actually achieved, because it was amazing. So yeah, share.
Thank you. And I'm so rapt to hear that, because you never know how some piece of advice or some words of wisdom may indeed inspire someone to bring out the best in themselves. You know, running for me is like a metaphor for life. How I felt in running, and I was very young when I started ultra marathons. I'd never run beyond 10Ks when I was invited to run in a 12-hour race, and I did that because I was working at ultra events to get my hours up for my sports trainer certificate. And I remember telling this guy, Cliff Young, who some of your listeners may know, won the inaugural Sydney to Melbourne race. He asked me what I thought of an ultra, watching 40 athletes run around a 400-meter track, and I told him the truth. At 2 o'clock in the morning. It's the most boring, stupid thing I'd ever witnessed in my life. And he said, well, why don't you put your money where your life is and run one? And I thought, you know what? I'd much rather run one than watch one. So I entered the race and had no preparation, no understanding of what I was about to put myself in. But I will say this, that Cliffy came up to me and he said, I've just got one thing to say to you. It's 90% mental and 10% physical. So that sort of, I again thought, oh, righto, Mr. 70-year-old, and I'm in my 20s. I think I've got this. And I remember as that went on and that voice started to come up in my head, the voice of doubt, the voice of pain, the voice of, what are you doing? The voice of, you're an idiot. The voice of, what on earth did you put yourself into this position for? When that voice reared its ugly head, the other voice kept getting squashed out. And that was, you asked to do this. You said you'd want to do this. You do not want DNF next to your name. Come on, how much have you gotten you? And I fought with
DNF,
both those
did
voices.
Not finish?
Yeah, yes. And I fought with those opposing voices, and more often than not, the negative one wins. And think about it in life. More often than not, it's easy to quit. It's easy to give up. It's easy to say, woe is me. It's easy to say it's not fair. The hardest part in anything is to stay on the track and put one foot in front of the other and keep moving in life. So I really got that. And it wasn't until I did a 24-hour race after I won that event, I was invited to run in a 24-hour race, that then Cliffy said to me, I've got another piece of advice for you. And that is, the race is not always to the swift, but to those that keep on running. I've never forgotten it. You don't have to be the fastest or even the best, but to finish your race your way and to do it with, you know, courage and dignity and grace and strength is one of the most remarkable things you will do. And it's never about the time when you know you've given it your all. So I think running really did become that for me. And I've approached motherhood in the same way. I've approached business in the same way, relationships in the same way. We get blisters, we hurt, we chafe. We then finish one race and, oh my gosh, we've won, or we've got a challenge to do another one. Or we think this was a good race and now I wonder if we could do it better in another one. And so I think it's a beautiful analogy to use to get you through anything. And that's why I call a lot of my talks the marathon of life, because life is one big ultra and we do constantly have challenges. And I think if there's something that marathons taught me, particularly 24-hour races, was when beautiful Cliffy said to me, you're about to meet the real Kim Morrison. Didn't quite know what he meant until about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, when I threw the biggest tantrum and I was the biggest witch and I blamed everyone in my team and it was all their fault, when in fact it was just me in agony, not wanting to carry on, but knowing that I had a team of people wanting me to finish. And I thought, you know what, that's us in life. We don't stop throwing tantrums after the age of 2. We all continue to throw tantrums. Another friend said to me once, if the world's cameras were shining in your lounge, your home, your kitchen at times, would you be proud of what was beamed out into the world? And I think there's times where many of us would be highly embarrassed to think what was tuned out there to the world. And I hope, if nothing, if you take anything away from this today, it is to be your absolute best, but also appreciate and value and wrap your arms around the worst of you as well, because it's the extremes that make us who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to ask you about overcoming fear. So, you know, when you're in those races, and, you know, did you have fear of not finishing? Did you, you know, how did you overcome that fear? And I'm just popping out and I'm going to be back because my battery's about to die. But I want you to talk to us about that fear and about how you overcame that.
Sure. So fear, and some of you may know this, is false evidence appearing real, or flag everything and run. Fear is something that's there to protect us. So don't be afraid of fear. But my grandma always said to me, when you're afraid of something or when the fear fairies turn up, it's a really good idea to ask if it's true. And you know, often we fear about things that we don't even know could be true. And it's often about what could happen or not happen. So the reality is we're not living in the now when we're fearful of something. Because right here, right now, I'm going to finish this race. Right here, right now, I'm going to launch this business. Right here, right now, I'm about to have a baby. Whatever it is, whatever you're afraid of, if you can pull yourself back into, connect with the mind and the heart and bring yourself back into the present moment, then we know that fear is actually not even real. It's afraid of something that could or might not happen. So when we come back into the power of now, our present moment, there is no fear because all I've got is right here, right now. But as Grandma said, when the fear fairies turn up, check in with your angels and then ask why you're afraid of it. And then go after that question rather than the fear of not doing it. Because when we get those triggers of fear, it's just a signal. And it's a beautiful signal to see if you've got what it takes. Or maybe, just maybe, this isn't what you should be doing. I mean, standing on the edge of the cliff and being afraid is a very good fear to have. Hopping into a car with a drunk driver is a great fear to have. So I always say embrace her or him, and then go after the feelings of why you're feeling that fear and check in with the reality of that in the present moment. And I promise you the fear dissipates and you make a way more informed and judgment around what is the best thing for you now. And in my races, when I was afraid of finishing, by the time the race started, all fear had gone because I'm in it now. And that's why I love the pain in the knee and the pain in the foot, because there's nothing like pain to bring you into the present moment. You can't think about the past when you're in pain, and you certainly aren't thinking about the future when you're in pain. So again, I have really learnt to embrace challenge and pain and fear as a beautiful barometer to keep me in the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your book.
Which, The Art of Self-Love, the latest one?
Books.
I know. I feel very honoured to say that, you know,
Yes,
I've written
yes.
six books, but the latest book is The Art of Self-Love. And that really came about, Vickie, because my 16-year-old son at the time was going through a really tough time. My husband had gone through depression and anxiety, even though he was a top New Zealand cricketer. He'd lost his sister tragically to suicide. So we'd been unraveling all of that huge emotional train wreck, if you like. My son was now going through a really tough time. I'd watched my daughter be challenged through her desire to be a ballet dancer. And I was just trying to come up with a formula or something that would help all of us, because in my queries and in my quest to find out why we all struggle, I realized, as I said at the beginning, none of us can avoid it. None of us will get out of this thing alone without it. So therefore, it's there for a reason. In fact, part of being a human being is to experience pain and struggle. And instead of sitting there, when he came to me at 9 o'clock one night, sitting on the edge of my bed, and Danny was lying next to me, and he said his life sucked and he didn't want to be here anymore. My instinct of being a mum just wanted to wrap him up and tell him how amazing he was, and please don't think that and don't do that. But I also knew I was robbing him of the validation of those feelings. And my job was more about helping him through the process of that than it was to fix that. And it's hard, isn't it? Because the people we love the most, we hate to see them in pain.
Yeah, we
so
just
we
give them a sweetie.
and we want to fix it for them.
Yeah.
And if you've got men genuinely, and I say this generally speaking, want to just fix it and move on. They can't stand the problem, and their job in many ways is to fix the problem so that we can move on. So the emotions of that is really important to embrace. And there's no accident. For 3 years leading up to that moment, I had been transcribing every, Oprah, Anthony Robbins, Deepak, Wayne Dyer, like every single person I was in love with. I just wrote screeds and screeds of script and looking for formulas and looking for, maybe because I was an athlete and I had an athlete mentality. I want to know the step. When you have an injury, here's how you recover from it. Here's the time frame. When you have a goal for being an international athlete, there is a plan for the race and all the levels you got to get to before you hit that start line. So I felt there must be a pathway to love yourself. And in this moment, I got to share it with Jacob, and I just drew a big heart in the middle of the page. And I said, you know what? The ultimate and your superpower is self-love. And I drew self-love in the middle of it. And I said, but the opposing force to that is fear. And out of that is this feeling of life sucks. It's not fair. Self-sabotage, fear, worry, guilt, shame, remorse, anger. All of that sits there. Both very valid feelings, and never should we discount them. But they are the two opposing forces. And the first step to get back into self-love is awareness, self-awareness, awareness that I'm feeling bad. That to me is the first step to loving yourself, because the minute you're aware that you're out of love, you're already back in love with yourself, because now you're aware of it. The second step is self-care. You've got to take care of yourself when you're feeling down, or you're pushed, or you're being absolutely stressed to the max or anxious. You've got to take care of yourself. Yet it's in those moments often we sabotage ourselves more. We eat terribly. We drink alcohol. We have one-night stands. We abuse the people we love the most. Self-care doesn't have to cost a lot of time or money. It could be walking outside and standing on the grass in bare feet and saying 3 things you're grateful for. Even in your agony, there is always something to be grateful for. That costs nothing. And by taking 3 deep breaths and having an air of attitude with gratitude, you actually stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which instantly stops the anxiety. So those 2 things cost you nothing, and they can instantly put the sympathetic nervous system in its tracks and bring on the parasympathetic nervous system, which creates calm. So that's beautiful. I'm an aromatherapist, so I love essential oils, running an aromatic bath, using lavender on the temples, using a spritzer, smelling and inhaling gorgeous smells is another way to aromatically anchor us into the moment. Running yourself a bath, drinking a green drink, making yourself a beautiful healthy smoothie, eating a beautiful salad, that's all elements of self-care. And with Jacob, I said to him, he's got to have something green with every meal. And I asked him to walk down to our beach 3 times a week and earth himself barefoot. He said he could do that. Then the next step is self-discipline. And without that, I believe this is the key to everything. And I know you will agree with me on this, because you would never have finished your marathon without discipline. The discipline of training, the discipline of sticking to something, and the discipline of showing up, for your trainings and for the race. Discipline is the most important factor, because without discipline, we're not going to look after ourselves very well. It's easy, as I said, to go and faceplant a chocolate cake when you're upset. It's easy to go and drink a bottle or 2 of wine when you're upset. You've got every reason to do it. But the hard part is making better choices, which this body is a temple, this mind is a beautiful reservoir of incredible love and knowledge. Yet when we harm it, unfortunately, we put ourselves further on the back foot. So to have the discipline to keep showing up, whether it's an 8-week protocol, whether it's getting a degree, whether it's reading a book a month, whether it's standing on the grass every day and saying 3 things you're grateful for, whether it's journaling, whatever it is, everything you commit to, most people fall off the bandwagon because they're not prepared to give it all the discipline. The amount of people I've had turn up at the gym, pay their membership, and 3 weeks later go, yeah, it's not really working, without really, truly, fully committing to understanding what it's like to fully commit and be disciplined. So discipline, that's what I call the doing. You've got to be aware, self-care, and discipline. And then we fall into the being, which is better self-control. You're not going to pick up a Coke when you've been doing an 8-week protocol to eat well and look well. You don't even crave it. You don't want it. You've got better self-control with the words you use, the things you say in your mind, the awareness of the beauty of this planet, the awareness that sometimes life sucks. You have way better self-control. You don't throw as big a tantrums. And with self-control comes self-respect. And when we have self-respect, and in New Zealand, the Māori word for that is mana, which means seeing the God within yourself and understanding and appreciating that your respect for self ripples into your family, your community, your home, your environment, the planet, then self-respect is one of the greatest superpowers you will ever own. You will not go and do one-night stands or feel shameful about yourself with your body when you have self-respect. You will not gossip and put people down and say nasty things about people when you have self-respect. When we're loaded with self-respect, all of that stuff is superficial. What matters is the essence, the heart, the soul work that we do for ourselves and others. And when we have self-respect, beautiful Vickie, we have self-acceptance. And self-acceptance means we accept ourselves, warts and all, the good and the not so good, the dark side and the light side, the beauty in us and the darkness in us. We realize that we are all a complete package. And when I happened to have a beautiful one-on-one with His Holiness, the 12th Kenting Taisatupa in beautiful India, I was so privileged to be chosen to have a one-on-one. He said to me, "Sweetheart, what is your question?" And I looked at him and I went, "Yes, I have a very big question for you." He goes, "What is it?" I said, why do humans have to struggle? Why are some people's lives so hard? How come it's so unfair that people have to feel real bad pain? And he laughed and he said, "Oh, very human question." And he said the same thing. "Sweetheart, in order to understand the highs, we must experience lows. To understand light, we have to know dark. In order to be the best of ourselves, we have to know the worst of ourselves." And I just have never forgotten it. And I think it's a beautiful acceptance that sometimes we're not going to be always great. Sometimes I've shouted at my kids. Sometimes I've had to apologize for being a brat. Sometimes I've had to show up in a way and apologize in a way that I had to eat humble pie. And you know what? When you do that, when you own it and take accountability and responsibility for that, you feel really empowered and you feel really proud of yourself, and you can really acknowledge yourself regardless of what anyone else says or does. It's your inner work that matters the most. It's your love for self that is what really truly matters. And that self-love creates a ripple like you would not believe. And that's why we get so inspired by people who have a sparkle in their eye, who keep dreaming the big dream, no matter how many times they get knocked down. And I think you'd be a classic example of that, which is why you have such amazing listeners to this show, is they see that in you. And in order for them to see the greatness, if they're watching this and thinking that you and I are great, it's only because they themselves have greatness. Yeah. And I'll say it the other way. If you think we're dickheads, it's only because you yourself are dickheads. So it works both ways. And I think that's the beauty of the human being.
What you see in others is always somewhere present in yourself. Yeah, I love that. And on that sort of line as well as of what is within you, I personally have this belief that all the wisdom and all the power and all the answers and all the love is actually within us. And I'd love to hear your take on this. So people, as humans, we search out there for the answers. We search out there for the wisdom. We search out there for the love. We search out there for, the strength. And we search out there for all of this stuff. And then one day we actually wake up and realize that it's all within us. What's your thoughts on and take on that?
It's beautiful. And I think the more you're exposed to work like this, the quicker it comes. The more you open yourself up, to be willing to be that vulnerable with this work, the more and the quicker you get there. And so I think, you know, like I said, we all have lessons. We've all come in to this world with DNA and 7 generations of not only physical DNA, but also emotional DNA. Why all of a sudden can we have an alcoholic in a family that no one else is an alcoholic? And when you go back in time, you may see that that person's there, or that it hasn't been cleaned up. And I hope I can be a little bit woohoo here, but from a soul journey and from a soul lesson and learnings, it's our job to clean it up this time around. Otherwise, my humble belief is that we're going to have to come back and do it again. So I'm really big on, if there's a lesson to be learned, as much as it's hard, or the ego may not want to hear it, or the mind might not want to see it, or your body doesn't want to feel it, the quicker you do, the quicker you get through it, and the quicker we can grow and advance from it. So my mum always used to say too, that there's a little part inside of you, deep within your heart, that no one has the key to. No one has the key to get into that. Only you have all the power in there, and it is so full and so rich and so beautiful. Now, relationships and people and experiences all add to the tapestry of life and the essence of being alive, as well as the people that hurt you and take from you, or that you feel very vulnerable with, can also add to the tapestry, but also build the resilience within us. That part of you is never touched. That's all the icing on the cake. That stuff within you is there, and it's always been there. But through circumstance, upbringing, personalities, teachers, life, maybe it gets buried, or maybe we don't believe in her or him anymore. And I think if you ask someone that loves you what they see in you, that's the soul talking back to you, because often we may not see it ourselves, but someone else that loves us will always tell us those great things. So trust that and ask for that. Be humble enough to ask for you. You know, I asked my son years later to get up on stage with me at a wellness summit. And I said, I had all of my family, my husband, my son, and my daughter on stage. And I said to them, if you had one piece of advice to share with this audience, what would it be? And my daughter said, everybody needs a Kim Morrison in their corner. I thought that was so cute. But she actually turned around and she said, no, you need a commitment to yourself. Coming to an event like this, listening to a podcast like this, reading books, really devouring the ability to have so much information at our fingertips is just taking yourself down that beautiful rabbit hole and staying in the work. She said, keep doing it. Then it got to Jacob, and he turned around and he said, you know what? My biggest piece of advice is that it's probably going to happen. There's probably going to be days where you don't believe in yourself, or where you don't like yourself, or that you don't feel good enough and you're comparing yourself to others. On those days that you've given up on yourself or don't believe in yourself, find someone who does, and let them, and tell them openly and honestly that you don't, and let them show you what you can't see in that moment. And I thought that was such profound advice. And Danny's, my husband, was communicate. Always be willing to be open. And I think that's what I love, what you've always been about. What really matters is connection. And what really matters is being able to share yourself. And when we share our story, when we share it without a pity party attached to it, but just with genuine, I see you, I feel you, then other people see themselves in that. And what a beautiful sharing, and what a beautiful soul connection when you go, I know that, I feel that. Oh my God, you're amazing. Is that how you did that? Oh, that's just so inspired me. And I think that is what really matters, is the ability to truly communicate from a place of vulnerability, but also a place of strength. Because you know what? When on the days when you're down, other people are in a really great place, and you're going to hope like hell that they're going to be there to help you through your dark days. But you're going to get through that. Not once do we ever stay there. Life is full of ebb and flow, up and down, highs and lows. And when you come out the other side, then have the grace to look for the person who may not be in a great place and check in on them. It's one of the most beautiful gifts you can give to another human, is just to say, I see you, I hear you, how are you? That's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my last question, Kim, is, you know, if somebody's listening to this and they really are in their own way, and they really are, you know, kind of struggling with, you know, what you were saying, that Jacob was struggling with, you know, sort of not feeling worthy, not feeling enough. What would be one piece of advice that you would say to them that could quickly kind of lift them up?
Ooh, it depends, because if you're lying on your floor and you know those bathroom floor moments, sometimes no words is the best. Is just to know that someone's hand is there. Or if you're on your own, that's why I love essential oils, because sniffing on rose oil or sniffing on orange or having an inhalation with bergamot or grapefruit or just some uplifting oil just gets you through the next moment. And sometimes it really is just moment by moment, breath by breath, step by step, that we get through these moments. So be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and know there's no fast track to get away from pain. As I said at the beginning, you have to feel it to heal it. So be mindful that you're just in the feeling of it. But the only way you're going to get out of that is to take care of yourself and to create new rituals of self-care, to get outside, hug a tree, cry in the rain, scream on the beach, yell at a tree, tell God he's stuffed up and he's not there for you right now. And then really look within and know that in time you're going to look back on this, just like you have all the other things that you've been challenged with, and gone, wow, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am and where I am today. And I just think, just remember, you are love, you are loved, and you have the opportunity to be love. But it's up to you. You have a choice to get into a pity party or a power party. And the only way you get into a power party is with discipline and the absolute commitment to yourself that you will, day by day, moment by moment, get through this.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much for being on my podcast today. I was so excited when you said yes, of course. And I just want to ask you, you know, so the very, very, very last, I know I said last, but wait, there's more. You know, when we say wake up to what matters, what does matter?
Oh, love is what matters. When we sit in a place of love, love is everything. You know, when I'm going through a tough time, or my advice is always, and you might even want to take this on for the previous question as well, but if you haven't got glasses, put them on, but imagine that they're rose tinted. And what would love do in this moment? And no matter what, love doesn't judge. Love conquers all things. Love is our superpower. Love is what truly matters, because when we love ourselves, we have the ability to love everyone else. And when we're not in love with ourselves, we know that there are others always who will believe in us to love ourselves again. And it's okay. It's actually okay when you aren't feeling your best, because that is part, as I said at the very beginning again, that is part of being a human. So to me, what really matters is the power of love, and especially self-love.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mwah.
My pleasure.
Love you.
Love you too.
Awesome. Thank you, beautiful. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. And I know that you got so much out of Kim's amazing words today. And we will put a link below so that you can actually look up more about Kim and her amazing business 28 and all her books and everything. So I'll put all the links there so that everybody can have a look. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.